I did what you told me not to do.
Well, I've told you not to do many things.
But I keep doing them, man.
You do?
When you're in the flesh suit, you can't think straight. I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
You got all these hormones surging, and then you just be like, I want to be with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So, and obviously I'm interested in, like, the estrogenized humans.
Mm-hmm. They're lovely creatures.
Lovely, but, the human relationship thing you warned me about, I was in that for a bit of time, man. And you think, like, what the narrative for humans is like, oh, you like somebody, you come together, you hang out with them more, put a body part in a body part, enjoy each other's time, and then everything's fine, and then you live happily ever after. And that's what all the films say. Dude, I did so much research up here, up in the flip ship, just watching human relationships and romantic comedies, they call it, and like all these couples, like they just go ahead and skip off into the sunset, and they're just, nothing ever goes wrong. And that's what I thought these things were supposed to be, but damn, we're just yelling at each other every second day. We started off enjoying each other's time, and now we just want to take a knife to the eyeball of each other.
I would humbly suggest that a good source of data for understanding human relationships is not romantic comedies.
Why would they depict the human relationship to be like that then?
It's kind of emotional pornography. It's not real.
What do you mean it's not real?
You consume the romantic comedy to feel good, masturbating yourself emotionally over the fantasy of what loving another human being could be and certainly will not be like. You got played, son.
So the humans made a fictional fake depiction of what they wished relationships would be like, not like an accurate representation.
It's one of their favorite things to do.
Fuck.
Anything that has the word romance or romantic in it is fictional.
So they did the thing that we've already known humans to do, is to paint their opinionated subjective reality on absolutely everything, living in a collective illusion all the time. And I totally forgot.
I think that you did forget one of the key principles. It was in the guidebook. I know that you didn't read.
But it felt so good at first. I mean, it was great. We're all like, hey, look at the Charles Bridge. It's fun. Here's a flower because that's what humans do. It's like symbol that I kind of like you. And then now it's like she took the thorns and just like right here.
In the eye.
You don't even like me. You show me,
Okay, so a lot of things that hurt in the flesh suit start feeling really, really good. And then they have like an after effect that doesn't feel so good. Apart from the romantic comedy expectations that you took to it, was there anything else that you assessed might have gotten wrong in this process?
I don't know. I think I've been through this quite a few times. I've noticed that there is like an initial time period in human years, or human time is like maybe like 3 months. And then after 3 months, everything that they liked about you becomes something that they absolutely despise. So the fact that I have to cover my eyes even in order to think about these situations, I have it automated. So just in case if I have the emotional flashbacks, it just completely simulates that reality out. It feels nice. But yeah, man, there's always like a time period. It just fizzles out completely.
Well, there's a biological effect. Hormones, the flesh suit is programmed for you to connect with another manifested flesh suit and to reproduce more flesh suits. It's like a biological imperative. Carry the genetic heritage along. And it's not designed to create individual human happiness or freedom. It's designed solely for the brutal fabrication and replication of more humans.
That's what I thought it was. And every time I said that, my relationship partner would get really offended.
It is really super offensive to say it in the words that I just used.
Wait, why?
Well,
because, like, for example, that's like actually objectively what it's for, to make more humans, and you enjoy that time period so you can have that passionate initial procreation period. But then I told that to her, and she was like, you don't even love me. This is how you view the situation? Like, what kind of fucking robot are you? This is insane. You have no emotional anything.
Well, it gets a little darker than that, because some scientists have suggested that there is an 18-month period during which that you would feel a certain way, but a lot of it is kind of false, and it's coming from the hormonal and reward systems. 18 months being about long enough for you to get pregnant together, produce a baby after a 9-month gestation period, and then hang around for about 4 to 5 months whilst the mother and the child are extremely vulnerable, and the child's developing an immune system whilst feeding on the mother's breast milk, only for you as the male party in the scenario to leave and repeat the process with another potential mate.
So I could say that to my relationship partner, and then they would understand.
No, I absolutely.
So I should do it.
No,
okay.
no.
I have an iPhone.
Please, no. Let's
talk to her right now.
No, definitely.
I mean, I literally smuggled this to the flip ship. I think it's. They should know about this.
I wouldn't tell her that.
They should. But that's kind of like objectively scientific,
yes,
right? I mean,
that's
why?
No, because it's not romantic.
But the movies are fake. This is at least like it has a fabric of truth to it.
She's
no,
definitely not going to appreciate you saying the movies are fake, and we've got an 18-month pair bonding period after which I'm supposed to abandon you with a child, and that's what I'm genetically programmed to do. Please don't say that to her. Pierre, what are you doing?
I'm simulating my idealized vision of love.
Is that helpful?
I guess it's better than what you've told me.
I'm merely trying to give you the truth, my dear.
But it's like all these films and all these people have told me, like, you get in relationships because it's love, and then you do the things that you're supposed to do, love, and then they'd be like...
That word kind of becomes a bit of a bucket, doesn't it, for many things. Love. You should do many things for this poorly defined concept, very broad concept, love.
Yeah, I still don't really know what it means, and I'm not even sure if the humans understand what that word even means, and I'm trying my best to try to get a grasp of understanding, and apparently the films weren't actually what I was supposed to look at, and then I'm looking at your scientific answer of it, and then you don't want me to tell my relationship partner about it. So then what the hell am I supposed to do in this situation?
Well, I would say, some dreams are worth crushing, and this is one of them.
I still got some flesh suit programming.
I know it hurts.
I think I'm glitching.
It definitely hurts, but I have a solution. I can offer a solution that I think is workable. So if we all embrace the idea that, the way that you feel in the beginning is not the way that you're going to feel throughout, that it's supposed to kind of change, and you don't need to be freaked out that it's going to change, and then you and your partner, I embrace the idea, at least philosophically, that you two as adults are going to stay in good communication with each other, knowing that these problems are coming. The problems are always the same. They relate to sexual exclusivity and jealousy and, that kind of, it's always that. And an insecurity about your standing in the relationship. So what I would say is we shouldn't be aiming for, we should kind of not get rid of, but just accept that the romantic comedy idea of love is false. Many of our notions of love are false. The Disney version of love is false, but we can safely attach. It sounds a little dry and a little clinical and non-romantic, but it's supposed to be. Romance will kill you in the end.
As much as my heart has been obliterated into 1,000 tiny pieces at this very moment, I think you have a point. Maybe perhaps the biggest pain of relationship problems and love and suffering within that whole romantic field is due to the fact that there's a lot of false expectations depicted in movies and film and music and media. And we've convinced ourselves, or the humans have convinced themselves, that that's exactly how romantic relationships are supposed to be, when actually the long-term stable solution is a million times more boring, but perhaps the safest and realistic way to go about it. And when we go and look at these films for how it's supposed to be, that's the results of all romantic suffering. It doesn't meet that delusional expectation.
Yes. And if you don't have the expectation that is warped and twisted by somebody who's merely trying to titillate you and entertain you and make you feel good, you will suffer less. So you said the word expectation. That's very important. We have to talk about expectations. And the other thing is that you mentioned elsewhere is that we're pretending we don't live in the flesh suit. We're pretending that we're at a different stage of evolution than we are. So the type of love that's depicted there, it may be true for humanity in 100,000 years or 200,000 years, but it's not going to work for humanity now. We are still in the flesh suit, and we will change through time, and our partner will change through time, and our notions of love will change through time. A lot of relationships naturally are built on sexual attraction. Even sexual attraction will change through time. And these are rocky waters, but worth navigating. So even though, in my view, the romantic version of love is a load of silly horse shit, I do think that men and women, people, humans, can come together and they can enjoy it. It can be a good experience, and you're better off with somebody than not with somebody, but you can't be doing it through illusion. You can only do reality through a map that matches reality.
So if we look within the timeline of human relationships, perhaps before, when the resources became quite prominent, there was a surplus of resources, the idea of a couple staying together over a period of time, that stability and long-term stability, which was a bit more dry, was just the norm at that point, because they didn't have the resources. They needed to work together in order to survive through maybe a drier means to providing and doing whatever for the family. When there were more resources collectively, then these movies started popping up because you can afford to actually have leisure time. And then it go ahead and depicts the relationship to be that delusional format, because that survival, that need for survival, isn't as prominent anymore. So now we have to look for that greater high in the relationship itself.
100%. I would agree. To the point of expectation, one of the things that needs to be said is humanity across a timeline, we live with a sort of forgetfulness of history. And so we think the way we are living today is kind of the way it's always been, which of course it hasn't. The notion of happiness is entirely modern. Happiness. And when we talk about freedom now, we're talking about the freedom to do your favorite style of yoga and, I don't know, travel to wherever you want in the world. When they were talking about freedom centuries ago, they were talking about not being enslaved and not being killed. So freedom, happiness is a completely modern concept, and the notion of freedom itself has changed. And you start pulling out these building blocks and the whole relationship falls. It's not, if we want to be happy, we need to accept that that's a new idea, and that our old version of doing relationships has nothing to do with happiness and everything about what you just identified, which is resource management in a scarce environment where you could be killed very easily. And your expectation of a long and happy life was very, very different. If you didn't starve to death, you had a pretty happy life. You were never enslaved. You were never killed by enemy soldiers. That's a pretty good life. That's not what we have now. Our idea of what happiness should be now, our expectations are massively stretched. Our expectation hole is truly gaping.
Gaping holes. Is that the pathway to love?
I think that we need to talk about the gape. We need to enter the gape bravely.
Freedom has changed. The definition of freedom has changed completely.
Yeah.
Because before we were enslaved and we were slaughtered, executions, torture, authoritarianism, monarchies.
Or just ignored in a village for your whole life. You just would never go anywhere. You'd scratch around and engage in subsistence farming and make enough food to keep not dying every day.
So the literal standard of enjoyment is to just be able to eat, to just at least have enough where you would be full. Just the sensation of fullness from a meal was enough to bring happiness. So it's like a drug addict trying to up in the dosage, except now it's this collective psychological drug where everybody already at baseline does a lot.
Yeah.
So now we need to up in the ante of how high of a dose that we want to actually feel the sensation of happiness. And this transpires in delusional films and movies that give us a false idea of what these things are, really.
Plus rampant narcissism, entitlement, greed, and we are the most spoiled generation of humans in known history. We're totally spoiled. You can't, and we're consumers, and you can't consume love. You can't consume a relationship. It's not one long party. Of course it isn't. It's not all going to be really, really super fun. You're going to make sacrifices. People would hate to hear this, and I'm glad that we're doing this privately, and it would never be heard publicly because they'd be very angry with me for saying this. You have to make huge sacrifices. Sacrifice, that goes hand in hand with humility. We've already established that humility is not an option.
Wait, you're saying in a loving relationship you have to like give up something in order for it to work?
Many, many things.
Well, that's not going to work then. Are you serious? With the human reality right now, the year of the split,
Yeah.
coming out of rampant consumerism of just let me eat more and more, you can give up something? Come on, man.
Also, imagine the insanity of expecting two completely ideologically brainwashed human adults who are trying to live a perpetual adolescence of consumerism and hedonism forevermore, coming together, living together, and trying to take and not give anything. They're both on the take. And so, of course, it doesn't work. Of course, it completely falls apart. These things have to be navigated with skill, with compassion, with awareness, and a higher level of consciousness. I would even go so far as to say that if you wanted to experience any kind of freedom or a semblance of satisfaction, joy, and happiness in a relationship, you damn near need to be enlightened, because intimate contact with another human being activates the shadow. It activates the psychoanalyst's unconscious. So what happens when two people get closer and closer and closer? In a certain sense, they get darker and darker and darker as more of their shadow shows up, because intimate relationships activate the unconscious.
One of the end missions that Corona said on the agenda was to be in a happy, successful, loving relationship, and it was given to me.
Yeah.
Was
She's
that
sick. She's a sick, cruel...
How the fuck is someone like me supposed to pull that off?
Well, she's certainly throwing the gauntlet down.
So do I just give my relationship partner flowers and call it a day? Is that how it goes? Or
I think that if you are both committed to creating a safe attachment that transcends cultural ideas about what romantic love is, then you have a chance. But you need to value being with that one person more than you would value promiscuity, hedonism, and the freedom to go wherever you want, whenever you want to do it.
so does that mean I have to let go of my 4 other girlfriends?
I would suggest the possibility that it might be a requirement.
You deal with the report.
I'll write this one.